In this video I'm going to share with you a really simple formula, a really simple kind of psychological, philosophical framework that can allow you to understand yourself much more deeply, understand others much more deeply, and then as a result start to really develop a higher degree of compassion and empathy. So in order to do this, I'm going to need to present 4 basic concepts which you already know that you know, but I'm just going to present it and put it together in a nice little neat package. And then in the end, we're going to talk about how this relates to compassion and empathy. So as you can see, the camera angle here is a little bit different, and I wanted to do this for the sole reason so that I don't block what I write on the board and you can actually see. And as you see the lines, I had to kind of mark that out so I could understand what the camera frame was going to be, so I could stay within that. So just apologize for that in advance. So the first concept that we need to understand in this whole framework is I'm abbreviating PB, which that basically stands for physical body. So in this context, what that means is our actual human mammalian body, and how this relates to the context of empathy and compassion and understanding yourself and others is that at a really common sense, basic, fundamental, obvious, objective, rational level, purely empirical, we all pretty much have the same body, and we all go through pretty much the same biological process. We're formed from a sperm and egg, we go through the course of our life, and then we die. We go through the similar stages of maturation, we have pretty much the same organs. In a sense, we're really working with the same machinery, the same framework, the same structure, the same system. So that's the first thing that we need to understand, is that as humans, pretty much we're really the same physically. Of course, minor differences, minor variations through a lot of other things, and some things which we'll get into next. So the next thing which ties into this is going to be LS, which I translate as lifestyle. So that could mean, your diet, if you're a vegan, vegetarian, paleo dieter, Atkins dieter, whatever you choose, that's part of your lifestyle. If you're a Christian, Muslim, Protestant, Buddhist, Taoist, atheist, agnostic, whatever, that's part of your lifestyle as well. Whether you choose to exercise, whether you like to run, whether you like to lift weights, whether you like to do yoga, whether you like to do tai chi, whatever that is, that's part of your lifestyle. If you work or you don't work, whatever it is, part of your lifestyle. And that's really what I'm referring to here, is actually how we're expressing ourselves in our lives, the things that we're doing from when we wake up and from when we go to sleep. So the third part of this is I'm gonna abbreviate as C, which that basically, I'm gonna actually move it so it's a little more, hopefully you can see that a little better. So what I'm referring to there is essentially conditioning, programming. So kind of nature versus nurture. This would be the nurture, and you could actually consider this maybe nature. So essentially the C stands for our conditioning. So the assumptions that we have about reality, meaning some people think reality is safe, some people think reality is not safe, some people think most people you meet on the street are nice, some people think you can't really trust people, especially strangers. And it's essentially just when we're born we kind of are at a blank slate, more or less. Obviously we have certain biological things, certain things that we know about reality, but basically the things that we learn as we go through our lives are highly individual and actually completely different for each person. So one person might grow up and think the world is one way, another person grows up and thinks the world is a completely different way. One person has a certain set of experiences which tells them and teaches them the world is like this. Another person has a completely different set of experiences and they think the world is like that. So that's essentially what I mean by conditioning. So this can be if we grow up in a certain kind of household, it makes us see the world in a certain kind of way. Whereas if we grew up in a different household, we'd see the world in a different way. If we grow up in America, we see the world differently than someone who grew up in China. If we grew up in the year 1960, we see the world differently than someone that grew up in the year 1984, 1985, 1990. So this is all tying into our conditioning, which is really conditioning our mind, conditioning our psychology, and determining our basic assumptions about how reality is and how we relate to that. So the fourth thing that relates into this, I'm going to abbreviate as basic needs and desires. So these are all basically things that humans have. universal needs that humans across the board throughout time have always had. The need for safety, the need for comfort, the need for familiarity, the need for, connection, intimacy, and to put it just generally, the need to be happy. And it's really, we have this in common throughout humans, throughout, humanity, throughout cultures, whatever you study, people all have these needs. They might manifest differently, but ultimately they're all working towards the same thing. And at a deep level, at an emotional level, we all really want to feel safe. We want to feel accepted. We want to feel loved. We want to feel cared for. We want to feel, intimate and close to things. We want to feel happy. We want to have fun. We want to enjoy life. So essentially, it's all the same. Just like over here, the physical body is pretty much the same for all humans. This is pretty much all the same because we have within us needs that we have just drives for. Kind of like we have to eat, we need to reproduce, we need to, have these basic needs met, or else we're either going to be really unhappy, we're going to be imbalanced psychologically, or we're going to die. So essentially, we can lump these into this category. So again, these are the 4 concepts that we need to understand. So now what I want to do is talk about how this relates to compassion, empathy, and understanding yourself and understanding other people. So to be completely objective and just realistic about this, what's basically happening is these basic needs and desires, which we all have, are really influencing us to a high degree. And then they're being filtered through, kind of like if you put on a certain color lens of sunglasses, the way you see the world is just that color. If you walk outside, and for example, if I take off my glasses right now, the world I see is a lot different. If I put them back on, it's a lot more clear. If you put on really dark sunglasses, you walk outside, the world looks one way. Take them off, the world looks completely different. So essentially, basic needs and desires are coming through, being filtered through and colored by our conditioning, by our mental assumptions and programming about reality. And then what's happening is that's becoming filtered through our lifestyle, meaning the actions that we're doing on a day-to-day basis, how we're choosing to express ourselves, express our energy, and really live our lives. And then essentially that's all creating and really being embodied literally in our physical body. So now we can understand how this all relates and how it all goes together. And now how does this actually relate to compassion and empathy? Now the first thing that I want to say is that people think these are really high virtues and that these are really advanced spiritual virtues that must be worked on and cultivated. But honestly, I think that's kind of egoistic, meaning someone feels insecure, so they say, oh, well, if I strive for this high moral ideal, then I'll be better, then I'll be okay, then I'll be attained, or then I'll be enlightened or spiritual. But in reality, compassion, common sense, compassion and empathy is really common sense and is really right there in front of us. The reasons, the motivations, the needs are already there and I think are inherent in humans across the board. Now where things can get hairy and can get tricky is the expression of that, is our conditioning and is our lifestyle. So our conditioning might say, look, only people who look like you are worthy of compassion and empathy. Only people who, listen to the same music or go to the same church or do the same yoga or have the same diet or have the same skin color, whatever it is, those are the people that are worthy of your compassion. Or everyone else is not worthy of your compassion, but, your family is. So it's really just depending on your conditioning, how that's all going to relate. So to really distill this down and see how you can apply it and understand it immediately to completely have a common sense point of view of how and why you can easily be empathetic and compassionate to other people if you so choose to. Because I'm not saying you should, I'm not saying you have to, I'm not saying you must to be a good person. I'm saying that I believe it's inherent in all people to do this, to feel this, because the reasons are there, it's obvious, it's easy, it's simple. So if you want to do it, if you want to do the mental work to choose between the differences and the similarities, which we're going to get into, that's up to you. But I'm just going to present the information to you. You can do what you want. So as we can see, we have 4 things here. So typically what happens in our mind is we're programmed to look for differences. We're programmed to look for things that stand out in reality that are worthy of suspicion, fear, anxiety, because we're constantly scanning at an unconscious level, is this environment safe? Am I safe? Am I okay? Or am I going to be attacked by a tiger? Am I going to be attacked by a bear? You know, these things are operating at a basic, fundamental biological level. So what we do is we focus here and here. We focus on lifestyle and conditioning. So we say, oh, well, I'm a vegan, but someone over here, they eat meat, so they're bad. And they're not a human being, and they don't. Okay, so, you know, we say, okay, they're a human being, but I'm better than they are because I do this. Or I'm a Christian, and that person over there is an agnostic or a Buddhist or whatever, but they don't believe in Jesus, so I'm better than they are, and they're, you know, lesser than me. But in reality, this is really just over here in this more external, more trivial point of view, because in reality where compassion, where empathy comes in, is when we understand these two things. First is that obviously we all have the same body. Basically. We have the same body, we're made of the same things, we're made of the same materials, we go through the same life process. Huge, huge degree of similarity. Secondly, we all have the same basic needs and desires. So what we can do and how we can understand this easily is to say that, okay, we're all wanting essentially happiness, we're wanting safety, comfort, familiarity, acceptance, all of these things, but because of our conditioning, where we grew up, where we were born, the things we experienced, we're choosing to fulfill this need based on a lifestyle choice. So we're choosing to feel significant, we're choosing to feel accepted, we're choosing to feel happy by doing certain things. But what happens is we get caught up in the differences, and we forget that we're actually all working towards the same thing. We're all trying to be happy, we're all trying to feel safe and accepted and have all of these good things in our lives, but the way we're going about it is different, which is this LS, this lifestyle category, which is based on our conditioning, our programming, and our life experiences. But ultimately, no matter what our lifestyle is, no matter what our conditioning is, we're working towards the same thing, and we're doing it with essentially the same organism, the same machinery, going through the same process. So any way you slice it, any way you look at it, you have more similar things than you do differences, because these are very small and very minimal. But if you really look at it and you really want to be objective or rational or pragmatic or scientific or empirical, it's completely obvious, and there's no reason to not be compassionate and empathetic, because we have the same physical body essentially, and we're working for the same needs. So these are the four things that I want to present, and hopefully now you can see a clear idea of how and why it's really simple and easy to be compassionate, to be empathetic towards other people, because in reality we're more similar than we're different, and we're working for essentially the same things, just in different ways. So even the worst person who's doing a very terrible thing is doing it for a positive reason. They're doing it because they're getting some sort of happiness or some sort of emotional response or some sort of stimulus or some sort of response from the stimulus that is some positive thing for them. Now, because of their conditioning, it might be backwards. It might be all kinds of messed up, but they're still doing it to meet one of their basic needs, which we all have in common, but we meet it in different ways. So what I'm saying is, and how this applies and how it's easy and rational, is that when we're out there in the world, we're living, we're looking at someone, and they're doing something that we don't understand, we don't agree with, or we disagree with, or we just completely are against it, we need to understand that ultimately, first and foremost, they're doing it with the same thing that we're doing it with, and we're more similar than we're different, and they're basically doing it for the same reason that we do what we do. So we might go, we might see someone who runs, 30 miles a day and think they're completely stupid, and it's the worst thing ever. Or we might turn around and look at ourselves and say, well, I do yoga, so I'm more spiritual, I'm more enlightened, and I'm healthier. But in reality, you're both doing it for the same reason. You're just expressing it in a different way, which is this lifestyle, category, concept, part of this equation. So hopefully now you can understand and can see fairly clearly exactly what I'm saying and how this all relates, and how at the end of the day, when we really look at it and we're really common sense about it, we understand that we're all pretty much the same, we're all very similar, And even when we look at the very trivial aspects of, oh, you're vegan, I'm not, or oh, you're paleo this and I'm that, or you're Christian, I'm Buddhist, or you're Taoist and I'm Hindu, or whatever, we can understand that ultimately we're only doing it to fulfill the same basic needs, which have been filtered through our cultural conditioning, our location in space-time, our life experiences up until this point, which we're expressing through our lifestyle, through our choices, which is where we so often get caught up. And then this is all manifesting and being embodied, of course, in the physical body. So if you look at it, these two highly variable and usually are going to be different from person to person. And they're actually just a small piece of the pie, because if we were to draw a pie and say lifestyle and conditioning, that's really going to be just this really small slice of the pie. Because ultimately the rest of us is actually the same. We're made up of the same things, physically, energetically, mechanically, biomechanically, anatomically, physiologically, whatever word you want to use, and we're doing it for the same psychological reason, to get pretty much the same response from the stimulus. So again, that's how you can really start to understand yourself a lot better, start to understand other people a lot better, and hopefully as a result develop more compassion and empathy, and as a result hopefully be a lot nicer and drop some of the petty, trivial arguments and some of the petty things that we so often allow our attention and our mind and our energy to be completely consumed and wasted by. Because sure, we can argue about, well, I do this and it's better than what you do, or I'm better than you because of this, or you're better than me because of that. We can argue about that forever. But the point is, and the ultimate reality situation is we're all going to die. And our time on this planet, in this space-time, is limited. Regardless of what grandiose, lofty ideas we believe in, that's the facts. We're born and we're going to die. We can't change that. Of course, based on that, our time's limited. So do we really want to spend our time arguing about trivial things? Or do we want to spend our time arguing about things of I'm better than you, or blah, 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 all these mundane level of consciousness kind of conversations? And an easy way to crystallize that, ask yourself, okay, I'm arguing with this person because they look differently or behave differently than me. And let's say I'm going to die tomorrow. Is this really what I want to spend my time focusing on? No. Because in reality, you don't know whether or not you're going to die tomorrow. To truth be told, you could walk out the door, be hit by a car, things of that nature can happen. No one knows when. So really, do you want to spend your time on this trivial stuff? My answer is no. I don't want to. I spent a lot of years doing that. High school and these things, and I'm over it. So that's why I'm presenting this to you and hoping to bring it to you so you can take this framework, take these understandings, apply it, and hopefully have a better quality of life, have more peace of mind, and just let go of a lot of the baggage and a lot of the defense mechanisms and a lot of the barriers that we're carrying around as human beings. So again, this is the 4 concepts that are presented to you: physical body, lifestyle, conditioning, basic needs and desires. Grand scheme of things, we're more alike than we are different. So if you have any questions or comments, post them below, and I'll talk to you soon.